Hey everybody, it's me, Nick Alamonos again, here to talk about my book, The Princess Radia. Now, one thing you'll notice right away about this book is that it tends to glow in the light, which I think is a really cool thing. I don't know why it's happening because this is not a matte cover, or this is not a glossy cover. It's actually a matte cover. So, but it's kind of ironic because Princess Radia, her name is derived from the word radiant. And this book and the picture of her seems to radiate light. It's very reflective. I don't know why that is. So that's kind of a cool feature. If you get this book, you can see that for yourself. The other thing you'll notice is that she has two different color eyes. She has a turquoise eye and she has a violet eye. And there is a reason for that, other than just it's something different. There's a reason for that. And it kind of clues you in onto who this character is. What is her identity? And if you're familiar with the world of Anya, if you read Ages of Anya, you know that there's two moons, or at least from the perspective of people living in the world of Anya, they see that there are two moons. And one of them is infinity, and that's turquoise, and the other one is eon, and that's the violet moon. And actually, Anya is actually a planet that is orbiting a gas giant. And so even though the inhabitants of Anya, when they look in the sky, they see what we would consider to be moons, what in actuality, Anya is a moon of infinity, similar to the way Europa or Io or Ganymede or any of the moons of Jupiter are moons of Jupiter. So in this case, Jupiter is infinity is like Jupiter, and Anya, the world of Anya, is like one of the moons of Jupiter. Another moon of infinity is Eon, and if you'll notice too that these moons are named after time references. So infinity is an infinite amount of time. Eon is a billion years, and so the reason for that is because the people of Anya use the moons to tell time. That's how they know how much time has passed. So instead of hours and minutes, they have passings and they have cycles. And a passing is the amount of time it takes for the smaller moon to cross the face of the larger moon, infinity. And it's about, in our world, it would be about 100 minutes. So it's a little bit like over an hour and a half is a passing. I just did that to be simple. And so the color of the moons are reflected in the eyes of the main character here. And you'll have to read the book to find out what that means. Now, I did want to talk about this idea, this trope of a chosen one, which you see in a lot of stories. You read like Harry Potter. And Harry Potter is the chosen one, and then you read about Anakin Skywalker, and he's described as the chosen one. And what I always found kind of interesting to ask is why? Why is Harry Potter the chosen one? Why is Anakin the chosen one? What is the reason for this trope? It seems to me kind of a lazy convention, a lazy way for writers to say, hey, look, my character's important because they're the chosen one. Now, I play around a little bit with that convention in my first book, Ages of Anya. When Xander goes to the city of Hedonia, he is not called the chosen one, but the high priest of Hedonia, Urukjin, he describes Xander as being the Batal of legend, a person who is written about in their holy books, who was prophesied to save the city of Hedonia. So, but the way that I kind of turned that around is that I thought to myself, what if these people like the chosen one, what if this trope is, instead of it being a convention of the author who's telling the story, it is something that is created by the characters in that world like the civilization or the society in that world, who they're basically looking for a hero. They're looking for a messiah. And they're creating sort of this narrative around this character because they want that character to be their hero. But in reality, he turns out not to be what they want him to be. And so that's the first way that I sort of flip this trope on its head. Because even though Xander comes into Hedonia as their champion, as their hero that's prophesied to save their civilization, it turns out, spoiler alert, Xander actually does not save Hedonia. Hedonia is actually destroyed, and Xander doesn't do anything to bring about its salvation. The other thing that I kind of I delve into, is this idea that questioning why do these prophecies take place? So you have these prophecies, like this character's prophesied to do X. And then the question is, okay, so if it's a prophecy, that means that somebody at some point wrote down that this would happen, which means that somehow some character knows the future. Then the question becomes, well, how does the character that created the prophecy, how did that person develop, or how is that person able to know that this event in the future would happen? You would have to have a character that has the power of prophecy, which would be the ability to kind of look forward into the future. So you have to have some kind of window into future events. Well, how does that character have that window into future events? And so that's something that I really talk about. I think I may be the only person that's ever really questioned these things and sort of said, okay, how do these prophecies happen? And if you read Ages of Anya, you know, again, major spoiler alert, turn the video off if you don't want to hear about this. But in Ages of Anya, it turns out that the reason that Xander is prophesied to do certain things is because a historian who was a time traveler went back in time, or went forward in time, saw what Xander did, and then went back in time and then wrote about what he saw Xander doing. So basically, the only way that you can really explain prophecy, I think, is to invoke some sort of time travel mechanic. And that's something that I do in Ages of Anya. And I don't know if other people have done it, but personally, I've never read a book that really goes deep into that idea and tries to explain prophecy. So I think that Radia, I think in the same way, I've noticed lately, and this really came to mind yesterday when I watched The Witcher. I just finished watching the Witcher series on Netflix. And they have the same idea that has really become a trope these days. It's about this all-powerful female character. You have these female characters, and they sort of tap into their godlike powers that they sort of discover toward the end, and they unleash their magical their magical power. Jean Grey from the Phoenix is another example of this. And this has almost become a trope. Same thing happens in The Witcher again. Sorry, spoiler alert. But you watch The Witcher, there's a character, and there's actually two female characters in there that kind of go Super Saiyan, at the end of that show. And again, I wanted to ask, why? Why do these characters just have a lot of magical power? Is it just because the author just says, well, I want this girl to be super awesome? Also, if you watch Picard, same thing. Now, Picard is a little more, I think it goes a little bit more in depth because there's a reason why this character becomes awesome. But there, again, if you watch the first episode of Picard, there's a female character who activates, and suddenly she becomes this martial arts master who can beat up everybody, okay? And it's cool. But again, it's a trope, and I feel like it's not as explored as it could be. So what I do with Radia, of course, Radia is a little more significant than that. I think I'm kind of giving that away if you're watching this video. She's a character that she's very crucial. She's very significant to the world of Anya. But I do more than instead of just saying, well, Radia is really important because she's awesome or because she's powerful, because she's some sort of secret. I really dig a little deeper into that. Basically, there's a reason why Radia is who she is. She signifies something. There's a metaphorical. There's a deeper level of meaning to that character, and part of it is metaphorical. Part of it is symbolic. Part of it kind of harkens back to pagan ideology. I remember when I was discussing this book with my author, I talked about the Christian allegory because there is a redemptive arc in my story. It's kind of hard to talk about this without actually going into detail about the book, but there is a redemptive arc in this book that is very reminiscent of sort of Christian themes, things you would see in sort of Christian stories. But at the same time, there's also a lot of pagan ideas that are explored in this book, and I almost feel like you can kind of guess where this is going. But a lot of these pagan ideas, a lot of these ritualistic pagan ideas that have to do with nature and nature worship and prehistoric, pre-Christian gods and witches, and how they used to burn witches because they sort of represented sort of nature religions. A lot of those ideas are explored in the Princess of Radia. So there's a lot more going on than I think is immediately apparent if you just read the back cover. So there's a lot there. So that's something I wanted to bring up without giving too much away. It's hard not to give too much away. So now I'd like to read the back of this book in case you haven't read it. Since she was a child, Radia has known the pain of every living creature as intimately as her own. Now her empathy may cost her her life. And I think that was interesting too, because one thing that I really want to talk about in this book is empathy as being an important factor. Because again, in a lot of these fantasy stories where you have these characters who go Super Saiyan, and it seems like the most powerful thing or the most important thing that the character can have is the ability to kill somebody else. It's like, oh, I can shoot laser beams out of my eyes or shoot fireballs out of my hands or lightning bolts out of my butt. And because of that, I'm awesome and I'm important. And for me, that's cool. And I like that sort of thing. But for me, I think it's much more interesting if you had a character whose superpower isn't necessarily I can destroy you, but that I can understand you, that I can sympathize with you, that I can connect with you on an emotional level. I think that's a lot more interesting than just having a character that just, boom, I can vaporize you with my mind. I'm so cool. I think that's cool if you're 12 maybe, but I wanted to write a story that was a little more, that dealt with other things. And I think that empathy is something I wanted to explore in this book. So moving on. When her stepbrother seizes the throne of fabled Tirnael, Radia is forced to flee from her only home. Betrayed by those most trusted to protect her, she finds unexpected loyalty in Damacaran, a war-torn soldier from a distant land. As they venture beyond the Crownavania Mountains, she is torn by a longing to return, acutely aware of the fear gripping her people and of her stepbrother's cruel machinations. So that's it. So that's the back. Now, I also, before this video gets too long, look at the time there, the other thing I wanted to do is I wanted to read to you a little fairy tale that I wrote about Radia. I wrote this fairy tale before I even started writing the book. I wrote this fairy tale down, and I was really tempted to put it in the beginning of the book, but then I decided not to, because I didn't want to bog the story down too much in exposition. And that's something I really got to say. I'm really, really getting annoyed these days by just the amount of exposition I'm seeing in a lot of stories, particularly independently published books. And I don't want to go off on a tangent here, but I really gotta just I think I'm going to make a separate video about this, but I really got to say, I am really just so annoyed by independent authors who you open up their book and it's just a block of information. It's almost like they're taking their notes that they wrote and they just drop it into the first chapter or into the prologue. That is not how you open a story. You open the story by showing me something about that character. You teach me about your character by showing me who they are. Don't just tell me who they are. Don't tell me that this character is sympathetic and interesting and sad and has a sad story. And don't tell me that. Show me that. Show it through scene, through dialogue, through their actions. But don't just tell me about the character. Show, don't tell. It's like that's creative writing 101. I learned that in 3rd grade. Show, don't tell. And yet you still have people out there who have tens of thousands of Twitter followers, and they have a book published, and it's on Amazon that they publish themselves, and you read the first few pages, and immediately you're like, this would get a C- in elementary school creative writing. I mean, it's kind of sad where we are right now in the publishing world, because it seems like, without any real training, without any real understanding of how storytelling should be done. And I'm sorry to say the word "should" there, but without any real writing knowledge, you have people with zero experience, churning out novels and expecting to become successful because they do a lot of marketing. Well, all the marketing in the world isn't going to save you if you've written a bad book, And that's why, the reason I'm doing so much marketing right now and why I'm talking so much about my book, The Princess Radia, is because I spent 35 years learning how to write this book. It took me 35 years to be able to write this. And not just 35 years, but it took hundreds, maybe thousands of terrible stories. If you read the stuff that I wrote when I was a kid, it was terrible. It was awful. And even if you write the stuff that I wrote 20 years ago or 15 years ago, it wasn't nearly really good enough, I would say, to be on the shelf with other traditionally, classically published novels. And that's what I'm trying to do. Like when I write my book, I often have other books next to me. I have classics. I have The Hobbit, and I have The Never-Ending Story, and I have The Once and Future King, and I have so many other books next to me, and I have The Last Unicorn, and I look at how they write, and I compare it to how I write, and I say, am I at this level? Am I at their level yet? Because if I'm not, I would be embarrassed to release a book that's not there. So that's why, even though I wrote this beautiful fairy tale opening, I didn't want to just drop it into the story because I felt it would be too much exposition for the beginning. Maybe it would have worked as kind of a poetic fairy tale thing, but I decided to drop it, not to drop. But it will tell you a lot about this character. So I just have to go to my blog. Hold on. And I will read to you. And by the way, you can find all of this stuff. You can find all of this stuff. On my blog if you go to the writersdisease.net, and you can read bios and sample chapters, and you can see artwork and poetry and short stories. There's all kinds of stuff that I've accumulated over the past 15 years regarding Anya and the books of Anya that I'm working on. So here is the fairy tale opening, the original opening to The Princess of Anya. Once, not long ago, there lived a king in the land of Tirnael who had but one daughter. This daughter he loved with his whole heart, but upon her 11th year she fell ill. her cheeks paling like the petals of a dying elm. Never leaving her bedside, the king called for every physician in his kingdom, but all were at a loss, for her ailment was unlike any they had seen. With enduring hope, the king sent emissaries to lands near and abroad, and learned men did arrive from as far south as the one sea, and from as far east as Shem Selinihar. Yet all were utterly mystified by her sickness. Beset by grief and desperation, the king offered all that he had, his very kingdom in recompense, to save his little girl from doom. And so it happened that upon this decree a wizened sage appeared at the gates of the compass tower. Examining the girl with care, he declared with confidence that he could make the girl whole again, brewing an elixir so that she might drink of it and become well. And shortly thereafter, the rosy hue returned to the little girl's cheeks. Overjoyed, the king asked what the stranger wished from him in return, reminding him of his vow. So long as you know, the sage said to him, I can stay the hand of the taker, but only for a time. At the close of 3 days, before the moon eclipses on the third night, if she does not drink of my elixir, death shall surely claim her. Hearing this dreadful prophecy, the king turned ashen. But the sage comforted him, saying, Be not dismayed, for it is not beyond my power to procure this remedy, enough to keep your daughter in good stead for her remaining days. Yet it is not without its price. The king readily agreed, preparing to surrender his great wealth, his kingdom if need be. But the sage asked for one small thing, and one thing only, in return for his ministrations, that the king take as his own a young boy to be adopted, the sage's own son. So that's it. That is something you need to know about this character, that when she was young, she got very sick. And her father, the king, was tormented with grief and worry over her. And then a stranger came and cured her, but the sage's son was adopted and became Radia's stepbrother, who plays a big role in the story. So that's basically all I want to talk about today about this character Radia. Again, here it is. I really, really, really recommend you pick up this book. I think it's going to be one of your favorite books. And I'm out here kind of like a dumbass, trying to promote it any way I know how. I'm a struggling writer, even though I've been writing all my life. I've spent most of my time learning how to be a good writer, and not really learning how to be a salesperson, not learning how to market. I don't know how to do that. I'm not very good at that. I'm not a YouTuber. I'm not a social media personality. I put all my time and effort and energy into learning, mastering the craft of storytelling, which is really what I think everyone needs to be doing first. But it seems like we're living in this day and age where this wasn't always the case, but it seems like we're living in this day and age where if you want to be successful in anything, you need to also know how to be a marketer. You need to know how to promote yourself, and that's something I'm kind of learning. So don't judge my writing ability, don't judge my storytelling ability by my marketing ability, or my YouTubing. Seriously, my YouTubing is a 0. It's an F. I'm not good at this. I'm kind of learning the ropes as I go along. But I figure, hey, it can't hurt. And if you're one of the crazy few people on this earth that is actually watching this, I'd like to thank you for watching this. And I don't need you to subscribe. I don't need you to follow me. All I need you to do is buy this book. I think it's going to be a treasure that you're going to remember for a long time. Maybe in the future, maybe YouTube won't even be a thing someday. I'm sure that Facebook and Twitter and all those things are going to go away someday. I think good storytelling will always be with us, and I think that this is something that is really worth your time and your money. You can get it at nickalamanos.com. Or, if you don't want to go there, I admit you got to use PayPal to go through my website. If you don't like PayPal, you go to Amazon and you can get it from Amazon. And it's only $12 plus shipping and handling. So please check it out. And if you do enjoy it, don't forget to leave a review. Thanks for watching.